Hello, carpet cleaning world. And tonight we have a very special guest on the Revolution Show. We have John Klucznik, the president of Bonnet Pro. Now, I know you've been seeing the advertisement all week. He owns Bonnet Pro, and he's going to talk to us about encapsulation, or better known as VLM, very low moisture. So, first of all, John, welcome to the Revolution Show. And John, tell us a little bit about yourself before I have an array of questions I want to ask you about encapsulation cleaning.
All right, brother Lloyd. Thanks for having me on your show here. This is my podcast virginity here, so you're my very first podcast. So I appreciate the opportunity. So I've been a cleaner since 1985. We used to do large area floor maintenance for department stores. We do 250,000 feet a day, 7 days a week, and led to carpet cleaning. And in '91, I had a family member murdered, my brother Michael. A few years after that, we started doing biohazard murder and suicide cleanup. I've done over 100 trauma events, and I'm a former IICRC master cleaner. And in '99, I started Bonnet Pro with the first ride-on bonnet cleaning machine. And then about 10, 12 years ago, we started into chemicals and bonnets and the rest of it. So in a nutshell, that's the history. I'm still a carpet cleaner and a cleaner, and I get to field test everything we design and make out with our commercial clients and pick at it and tweak it so you guys get a good product.
Right. Well, John, I thank you for that introduction. Wow, a triple threat. So you're still a cleaner, you have a product, and if memory serves, you've also made a machine or two in your endeavors. Is that correct?
Yes, I've designed 5 machines. Heaven's Best franchise bought my Carpet Max machine, which was a two-headed battery-powered machine that could do up to 400 square feet per minute. So it was a zero-turn mower of hotels and big carpeted areas. Currently, I make the Mini Max, which is a stick machine, but it's a high-priced machine compared to the import commodity products that come in from overseas.
Right. Now, just to be clear, because you even educated me, you have a rotary machine. Now, a rotary machine is different from an OP machine, and of course, it's different from a CRB machine, which, everyone is talking about these days, the CRB machine. But you actually have made a rotary machine. Now, John, what would be the difference between a rotary machine and an OP machine?
Well, the rotary machine is a balanced motion, so it's going to spin in a circle like your tire would, where an OP machine would be an unbalanced motion like a palm sander. So it has a whole different pattern to the movement of the machine. So some people really like it, some people don't like it as much. So I think it comes down to the taste and the need of the operator. And then some older guys that I talk to that have been around a while will have both, and they'll like the rotary in certain situations, and they'll like the OP in certain situations. So basically, the OP machine is going to be a wheels down. Might be a little easier on the operator from the handle weight perspective, but you have to push it forward and pull it back. Whereas the rotary machine will have a little bit more weight on the handle, but you have total freedom of motion. So you can go in any direction at any moment. Diagonally, front, back, you're not restricted by the wheels down of the OP type machines. So the OPs are a little harder on the bonnets than the rotaries are. I prefer a rotary, but there's guys that prefer their OP. So it's Ford versus Chevy kind of.
Understood. Well, John, I have an array of questions to ask you about this very low moisture, because I'm from the old school where we did, we only believed in hot water extraction, but we found out every day more and more, especially in commercial carpet cleaning, how this very low moisture is becoming more and more popular every day. But now, John, just for the new cleaners and the guys that don't have a very clear understanding of VLM, I just want you to touch on it, and then we'll go to the next question. Could you just tell us a little bit about VLM altogether, very low moisture clean?
low moisture methodology is something that's going to use a lot less water than hot water extraction.
Right.
So if you're bonnet cleaning, a gallon might go 300 or 400 feet. If you're extracting a carpet, that gallon's going to be consumed much faster as you're wetting out the fibers. So that's going to affect your dry time. It can also affect your flushing ability. You at times are going to clean the carpet quicker with extraction, but not necessarily better because you're not breaking the film barrier on the face fiber because you don't have the agitation, unless you're pre-scrubbing it with a rotary machine or a CRB or something like that. So the low moisture becomes important because there's less disruption to the facility that you're cleaning. So if I go into a hotel or an apartment building or a nursing home, whatever it is, my dry time is going to be a half hour, depending on air movement, temperature, and humidity, to maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on how soiled the carpet was, where we know how long extraction can be under those same conditions. Even in optimal conditions, extraction can dry relatively quickly, but in poorer conditions, it can take 6, 8, 10 hours to dry. So
Right.
in a populated area, that's a lot less desirable. Plus, you don't have the hoses and the other things to influence the cleaning job that can be a trip and fall hazard or be a negative on the job site.
Understood. So now, now encapsulation cleaning altogether, that's about, and I know you're getting ready to break it down, but I'm just going to try to tell you the little bit of knowledge that I have. You're encapsulating the dirt. So through in like your cleaner, I believe the most popular is the Rocket. That has an encapsulation um, product in it that actually encapsulates the dirt even after you clean the carpet with the whatever rotary or bonnet machine you're using. Is that correct?
Well, here's the idea. You want a dry vacuum. You can remove a lot of soil with that. In my Bonnet 101 video, we put a carpet in a machine shop for 2 months, vacuumed it, and got handfuls of dirt out of a very small piece of carpet. So vacuuming is very important. That takes out a layer. That layer doesn't use up your chemistry. The chemistry can therefore be used on the remaining soil and what's attached to the face fiber of the carpet. So that just helps it to be stronger and more effective during the cleaning. Now, if you use something like a bonnet, now you're removing another larger layer of soil. So then what's left behind puts less of a strain or load on the encapsulation polymer. Now you've got guys selling equipment saying just fiber pad it and just use the encapsulation to get out all the soil. And I do not agree with that, and I'll tell you why. And I sell encapsulation, I manufacture it, so I have no benefit from saying this, but it's the truth. So it is what it is. Pull out a hair out of your arm or pluck out an eyelash and put a coating of the polymer on that, and imagine how thick that polymer is. That's as much as what's going to be on your carpet fiber. So it's going to hold nano-sized particles. It's going to hold smaller particles of soil, which is helpful, but it's not going to remove the mass of soil that needs to be removed during cleaning. So it also provides a coating so the carpet doesn't resoil as quickly, and a good polymer won't create dust after it dries. Crystallizing has a tendency to do that and has a tendency to change the hand or the texture of the fiber, making it a little harder until it's vacuumed or there's foot traffic on it, whereas film forming types don't have that tendency to make that happen. So as far as going through your steps with low moisture, you're going to have less of a dry time. You're going to have less intrusion into the building because you don't have hoses and open doors, especially if you're cleaning a bank or something. That's important. Or I can't think of it, the Alzheimer wing in a nursing home where things have to be locked down. So you can get into those more secure areas with the low moisture much easier than you can with a truck mount. Now, it doesn't mean you can't extract those areas, but that's slower and can also create a longer drying time depending on the soil load. So the low moisture with the encapsulation offers a lot of benefits that we didn't have 15 years ago. And one of the reasons that makes that better is the qualities of the raw ingredients and the formulas have improved so much. Your method carries your soil from point A to point B, from your fiber to the sewer system. but it's your chemistry that does your cleaning. And if that fails, everything else fails. So if the chemistry doesn't work and separate the soil from the face fiber and pull it into the water where it's suspended, where it can be carried away, then your cleaning is just pretty much ineffective. You're going to get some result, but you won't meet your own or customers' expectations with a poor performing chemical. So that's probably the most important part of the pie. Your equipment helps you get productivity, but your chemistry does your cleaning.
Outstanding. Thank you for that. So I'm going to ask you about one more thing dealing with chemicals, and then we'll move to some other areas that I wanted to ask you. Now, tell us about peroxide in general. What is a peroxide, and what is that used for in very low moisture?
Sure. There's different, like anything else, there's different qualities, and then there's different strengths and volumes of peroxide. But in general, peroxide is a bleach and not necessarily a cleaner like a detergent or a surfactant or a solvent would be. And what that bleach does is that is excellent on removing organic stains. So organic would have been something that's living. So whether it comes from an animal and its urine, or it's pomegranate juice, or wine, or coffee, it comes from something that was natural or living. Whereas a dye from Kool-Aid or cough syrup, red dye number 44 or something like that, or Red Lake 40, that's synthetic. That's a whole different chemistry to remove that. But as far as an organic coloring goes, the peroxide is excellent on it, because your normal detergents and your normal cleaners are not going to remove those natural colorings.
Understood. So now let's take, for instance, your most popular product, Rocket Revival, or am I saying that right? Revival Rocket. Okay, everyone knows it, so I apologize.
No worries.
The thing is this: you were just explaining to us that a lot of cleaning agents crystallize, and you don't agree with that. So the Rocket has a film coating instead of a crystallization coating. Is that what I just understood when you were explaining that?
I think the majority of the people that are producing end caps have been crystallizing, and why they've done that, whether somebody was following what somebody else did, I'm not exactly sure to tell you about the history. I prefer the film forming because they remove slower off the carpet. They don't just shatter, which can create dust, and that also releases whatever they were holding back into the carpet, so that those fine particles can sift back into the carpet, making it harder to recover. It's more like, it's a bad example maybe, but if you walk on a stained deck, eventually that stain wears off. Now it happens much quicker with vacuuming and foot traffic, but the film forming comes off slower like that, as opposed to chipping ice off your deck, which would come off much more rapidly and much more easily. So that's why I prefer it. Some of the like Clausen and some of the other companies that have been around for a while,
Right.
They are film forming, and I'm seeing more film forming pop up because I think people have become a little sensitive to the dust. For some people, it's not going to stop them from using it. They might prefer it, and that's fine. It's still helpful. I just don't think it's the best choice. That's why I don't use it.
Understood. And so your product Rocket is film forming, just to be clear one more time.
Yeah, all of my products are either a hybrid or a film forming type of polymer.
Understood. All right, let's give you a break from the chemical deal there, or the cleaning agents, and let's talk about these pads. Now, just to let you guys know, while John takes his drink real quick, I saw a video, and you are more than welcome to go to John's website, Bonnet Pro. He'll tell you the link in a minute. But gentlemen and ladies, when you see, of course, he's using one of his rotary machines that he was just explaining to us about. He has these pads that he's getting ready to explain. I'm not going to interrupt that. I want him to be explaining his pads. But when you see how this pad, when it's brand new, looks so clean, and with his rotary machine and his product Rocket, I believe, was what he was using in this particular video, I couldn't believe. First of all, I didn't believe in very low moisture until I saw And yes, I have a mighty machine, but until I saw John's product on a commercial carpet and he takes the pad off, and you guys are more than welcome to go to his website and see the same video. I couldn't believe the results. First of all, the carpet had the round circle, so it's no tricks to it. It was really absorbed in the pad. But now I see why everyone is talking so much about this rocket. But it's not just that. It's the way John explains it. He's going to show you about his pad. Now, you got to understand, when he talks about this pad, these are his pads. And John, before I let the cat out the bag, please tell us about the iron. Well, tell us about the pads.
Well, you said the Iron Man. So, like I said, I've been a cleaner for 33, 34 years now. And I've used a lot of bonnets, and we're Bonnet Pro, so I thought we should have the best bonnet. So a number of years back, a friend of mine, Clark Lancaster, was importing pads from overseas, and his first batch of 30 to 40,000 pads was good. His second batch was poor. There was a lot of failures. And there was another man who did the same thing. I'll leave his name out of it, but he's a machine producer. And so I saw an opportunity to step into the bonnets world, because the two big suppliers that I knew in my circles were having problems. They had stumbled because their imports had given them poor quality product. So I had started making bonnets from different types of cotton, long staple and short staple. Long staple's better. From Pima cotton, which only 3% of the cotton produced in the United States is Pima quality. They use that for fine shirts and suits and fine apparel. I made bonnets out of wool and cotton blends, and a variety of different percentages and different variations till I came up with the Iron Man. So I probably have 6 or 7 years in producing bonnets and testing them and using them with our business and setting them out as beta tests for OP users and rotary users to try before we came up with the Iron Man. So what would happen previously is we made a cotton bonnet, and that performed clean better than anything on the market. But the way it was structured, the cotton would break down pretty quickly with maybe 8 to 10 washings, 6 or 8 washings. So the cleaning was excellent, but the longevity was very poor, and they would bite in very aggressively. So then I put glide strips in those, so they spun easier, but they would still break down. So the Iron Man gives us the majority of that cleaning, and it spins easy, but it holds up very well, and it's very unlikely to shed. So it checks more than one box. It's not a one-trick pony. It does multiple things well. And it's at a fairly decent price also, if you compare it against some of microfibers or some of the other pads that are on the market. So I think it outperforms them, and it gives you a better value for what it's able to do. The other thing we do is some of the terry cloth bonnets, they have a very, very small loop on them, which can't reach into the carpet very deeply. And then there's Woolen makes a product with it's a mop loop, which is about a 2-inch loop, and that has a tendency to pontoon on top of the fiber, because that 2-inch loop is too big to get through the little tufts and in between the little tufts, so it floats on top. We use about a 3/8 length loop, and we stagger the rows almost like a tire tread, so it's able to comb in deeper, and that's one of the reasons they'll pull out more soil, because of just the design of the pad. So that's become an important factor. And then we overbind the edge, and they're made. I source the yarns in the U.S. I just spent $25,000 for 6,000 pounds of yarn. So we just bought in a lot of yarn, and they're also manufactured in the U.S. So everything's done here. It's not imported from overseas.
Oh, wow. Wow. All right. So there you guys have it. But you have to watch his videos on the Bonnet Pro website. I mean, guys, you know, I deal with a lot of manufacturers. I've seen a lot of products, and I'm very, very not impressed all the time. But for me to sit there and watch these videos, because there's no question, these pads in very low moisture really does work. particularly in my opinion, when you're doing a lot of commercial carpet. But one thing John didn't mention, and I want you guys to think about this, because I remember many years of me having to drag a portable up to the 30th floor in a hotel or an apartment building and whatever. And it wasn't my first choice. I really would not want to do these buildings that paid me well because I had to drag the portable up there. Well, guys, with this system here and very low moisture, you really can pick up some soils. And with these pads, I plead with you to go to John's website and see these pads in action, or better yet, John's right here, Bonnet Pro. You can try them out yourself. But the thing is, you won't believe it until you try it. Now, we already know about Rocket. We've heard so much about Rocket, his product there. But with his pads, it's just one last thing. Well, it's not the last.
Let me interrupt you a minute. There's guys using just fiber pads, and they scrub well, or they're using a Cymex, and it scrubs well. Yeah. If you go to my bonnet wash page, there's a picture of the dirty bonnets in a washing machine, and you can see. And so some guys will say, "Well, I don't like bonnet cleaning because it grinds all the dirt into the carpet." Right. So if you're not using it properly, that could be true. You can do things wrong with extraction too. So it's the operator, not necessarily the method. But if you go to the bonnet wash page, there's pictures of dirty bonnets and clean bonnets. That's not the point. At the top of that page, there's a picture of a washing machine, and you can see just how filthy the water is from the dirt that came out of those bonnets that the bonnets pulled out that's no longer in the carpet, that now the Encap polymer doesn't have to deal with. So you can get a visual look at what that does. I also did an article that CleanFacts published that's in my CT6 Education Center, and that also talks about bonnets and has pictures like that in it, where you can see just what it's accomplishing. Because when you extract a dirty carpet, naturally your waste tank, you dump that and you have filthy water. Well, I don't think people realize how much you can get out with the bonnets, and it gives you an option in these more difficult areas or areas that are more sensitive that need a faster dry time. That I love extraction. Extraction is great. I've had plenty of truck mounts. I have a big Nautilus portable that I use from time to time. But time is money, and you guys are in business to make money. So having an option that gives you a higher income per hour while still satisfying the customer and meeting their needs is an important tool to have in your toolbox. So it just gives you another way to produce income to feed your family, and it's easier on you. Lugging 200 or 300 feet of hose gets tiring after a while. I'm 53 now. I don't want to do that. I don't want to lug hose up stair towers. It's much easier to put a Minimax on an elevator and go up 10 floors than go up, drop a rope down the side of the building and pull it up through a window, or go up through a stair tower and tape it off so nobody gets hurt. So it's just a nice option to have, and it's readily available to everyone at this point. Whether it's my product and my chemical and bonnets, or if it's somebody else's, it's a great tool to have in your arsenal of cleaning supplies.
Now, John, you showed me something the other day that was really just another, besides the pads that you have a multi-brush system. Can you please let the carpet cleaning world know about this phenomenal multi-brush system and what it does?
Well, I didn't invent it, but I think I made it a little bit better. So the multi-brush, the one that we sell, it's actually a brush from Carlisle, and I'm a little crazy, so I counted all the bristles. I got 9,400 bristles on 3 rows on the outside of the brush. And then on the inside, you can put one of our Iron Man bonnets that we specially make for it, because it's got to be a certain thickness to be the right height with the bristles, and just not any old bonnet can fit in there. Or you can put one of our Revive fiber pads in there. And what that does is the bristles from the brush comb through the carpet. So it almost gives you a pile lifting effect. I've used it countless times where I've run a protein vacuum over the carpet and ran the multi-brush, and it lifted up so much crud that the vacuum missed, that I had to wipe the baseboard down around the room, because it deep clean the carpet. And when it did what it was doing that, what it did when it was doing that was to also stand up the tuff again of the carpet. So it gave it a nice grooming effect. So when you use a fiber pad, they scrub well, but they have a tendency to let gravity pull the moisture, which is holding the soil, deeper in the carpet by the time you get back to it with the bonnet. Whereas with the molly brush, you get to do a two-step procedure with a single pass. So instead of putting a fiber pad under your machine and cleaning the area and then going back and going over it again with a bonnet, you get to scrub the carpet and absorb in a single pass and do it in a more aggressive manner, a more complete manner than you would with a bonnet alone. Typically, I'll run the bonnet by itself because I can run a larger bonnet than I can with the molly brush. But when I come to a more challenging situation, the molly brush gives me extra cleaning ability that I didn't have with just the bonnet by itself.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. All right. So that leads me to my next question, which someone already mentioned in the comments, your radical rinse.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about radical rinse, John.
Radical rinse is kind of neat because when you look at peroxide in a liquid, you're going to need 6 to 12 ounces to be effective. Even with my product, Rocket's almost 50% solids, and 25% of that is a high-grade peroxide blend. So where a lot of liquids are in the 25, 28% range. So we have more solids in Rocket, and that's why it outperforms many of the competitors. So typically I'll clean with that at 8 ounces per gallon. So with the powdered version, I'm cleaning at 1 ounce per gallon and matching the results. So I don't have any shipping issues because a guy, if I ship it and leaves it and it sits on a guy's porch, it can freeze with the liquid product, and that damages the peroxide if it freezes solid, whereas the powder doesn't. So I get to give customers a better value because it goes further and it doesn't have some of the negative characteristics that a liquid product can, but it's still giving me the performance at a much lower dilution rate. As an extraction rinse, it's only 1/2 ounce per gallon, and as a main cleaner, it's 1 ounce per gallon. So I'm not seeing too many products on the market that can match those dilutions.
Wow. So, John, for some of the new cleaners in the industry, and for some of the guys that have been around for a while, a common question is, they want more. How do I get more commercial work? And I'm a demo guy. I always believe, or I say, a presentation without a demonstration is just a conversation. So therefore, if we had your Rocket and your radical rinse, and we went in and we asked, say, a commercial potential client to let us clean one area, and what I've seen in your videos with one of your Iron Man pads and your Rocket as the base cleaner, and I guess then the rinse, would you recommend that would do a nice little demonstration where that would really brighten up a carpet like I've seen in your video, and then you could actually show your potential client the side of the pad like you did in your video there, and how much soil it pulled out that carpet? How do you feel about that?
Well, if somebody's looking, they're having a problem. So you're there to solve a problem. So if I'm going to take my time and invest my time to go and do a demo, first I want to make sure I'm with a decision maker.
Right.
You don't want to be with somebody who doesn't have the authority, who called you in when the decision maker maybe isn't interested. So I think it's important before you invest your time to make sure you're demoing to the right person. That's important because they're there right then. You can impress them right then, and maybe they can make a decision right there and then. So if I'm doing a bonnet demonstration with that decision maker, I always use a brand new bonnet because it's going to show the most before and after difference. So you want to do your area and you want to force it dry, because what you don't want to have happen is, whether it's a 10 by 10 or a 10 by 20 or however big the area is, you don't want to do that and then have people walk through it and track from the dirty areas onto your clean area, because that's going to make your clean area not look right. that won't be as impressive. So do your demonstration and make sure you force it dry. Bring an air mover and get that dry. If you're going to do an extraction, that's fine also. You might even run a bonnet afterwards because that's going to help dry it, and that's also going to help clean it more. You'd be surprised at how many times you do an extraction, even with a big truck mount, and run the bonnet afterwards, and you get a filthy bonnet. And I can tell you why that happens if you want me to explain that.
Please.
Okay, I used to do a car dealership, A&T Subaru. It had a blue olefin carpet, and I had White Magic's demo truck before they went out of business. So it had the Vulcan preheater. It was a big blower, direct
Oh,
drive.
yeah.
It's a real nice unit. It could go 1,1400 PSI, and I think it was a 5.7 or 5.8 blower. So it was a good sized truck. It wasn't an Aerotech, but it was certainly a nice machine. So I would go in, I would pre-spray that, I would extract it. Wasn't happy. I'd pre-spray it again and extract it. Or I would pre-spray it and do a vacuum pass to pull out the dirty pre-spray it again, and then wash that out. And it wasn't until I would bonnet clean that carpet that I would be satisfied with it. And this is why. If you take your car to the car wash and you hit it with that really high pressure gun, which is multiple times more flow and more pressure than what we use even with a truck mount, you can still go over to the paint and rub your finger on it and take a film of dirt off of the car surface, even though you just basically pressure wash that side of that car. And that's what happens with the extraction. You're rinsing at 100 or 300 or 400, maybe even 500 pounds of pressure, not a couple thousand like at the car wash, and a much lower flow rate. And you're going over it with a nylon glide. So you don't have the friction. But when you go over it with the bonnet, that mechanical action swipes the dirt off of that face fiber, and you get a better clean than you would with extraction by itself. Now, if you're using an RX-20 or something like that, that would be the exception to the rule. But when you're dealing just with a wand and one or two stroke pass, you're leaving that face fiber dirtier than you think you are, because you're not providing the agitation like in the car wash example.
Wow. Wow. Okay. John, I tell you, man, there's a wealth of knowledge. Now, we have a photograph of you in the advertisement for this event where you're actually in the laboratory and you actually have did your research. So what you're saying is not just, about the filming and the crystallization. You have actually did laboratory test yourself, not something you heard secondhand, because we see you there in the laboratory. You got to be doing something. And what you're doing is you're seeing, like you were telling us about the crystallization and the filming. Tell us a little bit more about that with your laboratory experience there.
We went to a certified lab and used an electron microscope. And what we were originally trying to do was measure the thickness of the coating of the polymer film on the fiber. So if you go to bonnetpro.com and go to the CT6 education section, there's an article called, under my name, there's 30 articles and videos up. You click on my name and those will pop up. And it's called Surrounding the Electron Microscope. So what we did is we took a $250,000 electron microscope and the lab technicians that were there, and I was present, and I took them a variety of samples that were straight polymer, that had been vacuumed 3 times and that had been vacuumed 6 times. So we could look at the fibers under magnification up to a couple thousand times magnified. Even at 80 times magnified, it's hard to tell it's carpet still. At 650 times, you can see the trilobial shape of nylon. We cut a piece of nylon in half, and it looks like it's thinner than an eyelash when you look at it in regular magnification. But under extreme magnification or multiplied magnification, you can see the actual, it looks like a Y when you cut it in half, that little tiny fiber. So that was pretty interesting. So you could see things that you couldn't see with the naked eye. So we could see what the fiber looks like, and there's dozens of pictures up on that article that you can see for yourself. So you can see what the polymer looked like on the fiber, and then what it looked like after it had been vacuumed several times, and then after it had been vacuumed a half a dozen times. So therefore, I could go back and say, okay, well, ours doesn't just fall off like the crystallizing stuff does. It comes off more slowly and holds the dirt more securely until it's being removed by the vacuum. So that's one of the reasons I like what we're doing a little bit more. I'm sure the crystallizing guys would disagree with that and like what they're doing more, but that's okay. Um, I have to go down the road that I think is best for us at this point.
Correct. Wow. Well, John, we're coming up on about 20 minutes left in the hour. Um, let's do some of my last thoughts here. First of all, in the comments section, hello to everyone that's saying hello. And while we have John Klucznik here, Klucznik, thank you, from Bonnet Pro, does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask about very low moisture, about Bonnet Pro's cleaning agents, or maybe the equipment that John makes himself or his past? See, this is a triple threat. So any questions you may have about very low moisture or encapsulation, this is the gentleman right here that you want to speak to. So right
Well,
now,
if I can, let's open that question base up a little bit. And those questions are fine, and I'll be happy to answer those. But you can also ask questions if you're struggling with something, you're having a challenge that you're not sure how to overcome, or any difficulties that you're coming across with either getting into low moisture, or maybe you haven't got the results that met your or your customers' expectations. Maybe I can give you a couple ideas to help you adjust what you're doing to get a better result. So, and that's not, if you want to try Bonnet Pro products, that's fine. Be happy to help you with that. But I also try to assist people, even if they're asking me a question that doesn't lead to a sale, that's fine too, because I'm here to serve the industry and help people. People help me come up, and I don't mind helping other people do the same.
you heard it. So now is the time to ask. Um, what I would like to add. Oh, what's up? Oh, people are saying hi to you. Okay. All right. So, John, about this CRB, cross rotating brushes, what's your take on that?
Um, there's good and bad, like there is with any machine. Um, the problem I have with it leaves all the dirty solution in the carpet for the polymer, and we've hit on that a little bit. Why that's not the best choice. The cylindrical brush machines are very good at pile lifting. They're very good at removing large debris and dog hair and those types of things that a normal vacuum might struggle with because of the size and the density of the brush rolls in those machines. So in that regard, they work very well. The way they're designed, they can't clean right up to the edge like a wand or a bonnet can get to. So they have their strengths and weaknesses. I don't own one. I've used one before, and there's plenty of people that like them. From a political standpoint, the carpet manufacturers like them, whereas, but I don't see, if you go into a greasy restaurant, how you're going to clean that effectively, because you're not removing any of that soil laden water that you're running through the carpet. So for maintenance and lighter soil loads, they're probably fine. For heavier, more difficult challenges, they need assistance with bonnet or extraction or something to follow up after them, after they've taken out some of the larger debris that the vacuum might not get.
Right. So basically, that was my question. But someone is asking here, can you lay down the product with pump sprayer, then 175 it?
Absolutely. Now, when you do that, you want to be careful to not spray down too large of an area, because as that starts to dry, especially if it's springtime and there's a nice warm breeze, that's going to dry quickly. Or if it's wintertime and the heat's on and the air is very dry, it's going to evaporate more quickly. The water that's in that carpet does a couple things. It provides lubrication for the bonnet so we don't damage the fibers. But that moisture is important also because it helps transfer the soil from the fiber into the bonnet. So if it's too dry, that's not going to occur. It's not going to occur as effectively or efficiently. So we don't want to flood the carpet. We don't want it too wet, but we want to have a balanced amount of moisture to allow the cleaning process to take place and to protect the carpet fibers.
Thank you, John. The next question is, should you use a bonnet pad on an entry mat?
Entry mats can be tough. I mean, I've taken them and hung them over a sawhorse and put a pressure wash gun on my truck mount and hit it at 1200 psi for 15 minutes, and mud just pours out of this entryway mat. You can touch them up with that, but to thoroughly clean them, I think something more aggressive, depending on the age of the mat, is necessary. I've serviced a hard floor in a store called Agway, Dublin Agway, since 1985. We just finished stripping them on Saturday night. And the mats at Agway, because it's a farm and home store, if I take that outside and flip it upside down and shake the mat upside down, there's so much dust comes out of it that you can't see the concrete. So in a situation like that, if I was cleaning that mat, beyond that, I would vacuum the back of the mat, the rubber part, and the vibrations of that would help sift that soil out of the fibers. Then I would flip it over and vacuum the top part of it, and then do my cleaning. Now, some mats you can't do that because they're installed. They're either carpet squares, and you don't have the option to flip them over. So depending on how neglected they are, they can be challenging. So you will make an improvement, but you may not end up with a restorative type cleaning depending on the situation.
Outstanding. All right, John. After hot water extraction, a little mist over reappearing areas with a polymer helps in those areas, correct?
I'm sorry, it helps what those areas?
Helps with reappearing spots in those areas. Putting a little bit of polymer helps those areas, correct?
It's possible. It depends why those spots returned. A lot of spots return because they weren't cleaned properly in the first place. So I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a petroleum-based substance on the fiber, and now soil and pollution and different things in the environment are sticking to that petroleum-based material that's on top of the carpet fiber. So we clean it and we get the dust and the dirt off of the oil, but we didn't actually remove the oil. So then that area is going to resoil at an accelerated rate. So it's important that we're using a pre-spray or a spotter or both to actually get that substance off, and then you're much less likely to have those spots returning. Or somebody cleans it and they didn't use enough cleaner on it. Maybe they used the right cleaner, but not enough. So they cleaned the top half of the fiber, but they didn't get it all the way down to the bottom. And then if with foot traffic and whatnot, that gets pushed into the bottom and that material spreads on that fiber, and then it starts to resoil more rapidly again. So the end cap can help, but the proper cleaning is the best thing to do first to help prevent that from happening.
Thank you, John.
Sure.
All right. What about HWE, then bonnet afterwards?
Excellent. I've corrected a lot of situations. I remember years ago, I had landed a very large account, Rock Hill Mennonite home, and the guy was tough on me. He just broke my stones every chance he got um, because he was running this very large facility and expected a lot of me. So I went in with a truck mount and actually, I don't remember if it was an RX-20 or ProChem Power Glide. Great machine. Hit this carpet in front of the nurses area and through the elevators and in the front of this building, and it looked fantastic. And almost within 20 minutes, I watched it wick up, and it looked horrible. It looked camouflaged. It looked uneven. I came back a second time the following week, extracted it again, had the exact same problem. I called a friend of mine who was the first IICRC instructor I had back in the 90s, Ron Tony, very, very smart guy. He said, run a bonnet on that carpet after you extract it and it'll fix the problem. And it sure as heck did. So whenever I have a difficult situation like that Subaru dealership I mentioned earlier, after extracting, I'll run that bonnet. And like I said, if you're using a cotton bonnet, you'll be amazed at how much soil you can still get off of that carpet, even though you've extracted it.
Thank you, John.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't properly end cap after cleaning with a truck mount is the question.
Well, NCAP is just the way the chemistry dries. So I've got guys. Your friend Courtney from Truman Steamers. He NCAPs with his truck mount. So the way the polymer dries is just that. It's that's what NCAP is. So it has nothing to do with the method. It doesn't have anything to do with anything else other than the way the polymer dries. So you can hot water extract with NCAP. Usually I'll use a pre-spray with the NCAP and do a clear water rinse, or now that I have radical rinse, which is an encapsulating rinse, I can run that as the last step and I end up encapsulating even though I've extracted. Did that answer the question, or did I go off track there?
I think that did. All right. So, what's the best way to use peroxide in with VLN? Um, is or i.e., can we add peroxide to our solution to improve results safely?
Possibly. Chemistry can be a very touchy thing. Uh, 2 years ago, I made 8 formula changes to Rocket before I got it right, and that we already started with a formula that pretty much worked. So getting a little tweak out of it was very difficult. So when you're adding peroxide to the product, is it peroxide stable, or is the peroxide going to cause harm to the ingredients or the formulation of those ingredients in that product? In the short term, it might not. If you leave it mixed for a while, there's a good chance that that would cause that to go unstable. The other thing you need to be careful with peroxide is, depending on the strength and the volume that you get, it can be 50% or stronger peroxide can ignite organic materials without an ignition source. Meaning, if I put 50% peroxide on a leather glove, that leather glove will ignite by itself. It's that aggressive. Peroxide is used in rocket fuel, so it has great potential to release a lot of energy. Now, the 3% you get in the brown bottle for cuts is on the other side of the scale, and rocket fuel is on the far side of the other end of the scale. So sometimes it's not a great idea to play chemist. Sometimes it'll work. Sometimes you get in trouble. But if you're gonna do that and try a stronger peroxide, be careful, because it can cause tissue damage in the eye that's irreversible. So if you're gonna do that, be careful with it.
All right. How long does the polymers in your radical rinse last?
Uh, if the question is how long will they remain on the carpet after the carpet's clean, that's going to depend on the amount of times it's vacuumed and foot traffic and external sources. So if you clean it and it sits there and nobody touches it, it'll remain there pretty much indefinitely. If it gets vacuumed 3 times in a week in a commercial environment, by the end of the week or the end of the second week, it's going to be removed.
All righty. So I should skip the CRB and go for a 175 question mark.
I think the 175 is going to give you a more rounded and broader ability to clean more situations than a CRB alone. I'm not saying don't. I'm not saying turn your back on the CRB. I'm not saying it's not a good tool for what it is and what it does. What I'm saying is, it's, in my opinion, it's not complete. That often I talk to cleaners that they find when they start with a CRB alone that it needs assistance. So what it does well, but it doesn't do everything. And neither
Oh,
neither does the bonnet either. I mean, the bonnet's a great tool, and you can do a lot of things with it. But there's times you still need extraction. I'm not going to bonnet urine damage. If there's an excessive amount of grease in the carpet, I'm going to extract that quicker than I can bonnet it, which is more profitable because I'm in business to make money. So I try to pick the right tool for the job and what the job requires, as opposed to trying to apply one methodology to every situation, which isn't going to work.
wow. So, that's good advice, John, because CRBs, like I was just pricing one for a guy. It's like $1,900.
Mhm. Now,
And I'm
if you're coming across a lot of areas that have pet hair problems and things like that, it might be a good tool for that person in that circumstance to have. Or if you get into some hotel or something like that where they have a requirement with the carpet warranty that only allows them to do certain things, again, that might fit that criteria and be a good fit in that situation. But what I'm saying is in heavier soil situations, I think guys that just have the CRB are going to struggle.
Someone just said, I think an OB unit will work better. I don't know if they meant OP or if they
Yeah,
really
they
meant OB.
probably meant OP, and there are guys that'll swear by the OP machines, and that's fine. They have to use what they feel comfortable with to put food on their table. I don't have any problem with that. And there's other guys that like the rotary better. One of the reasons I like the rotary better is, one, I have the freedom of motion, but I can put more attachments underneath of my rotary than you can under your OP machine. I can put the multi-brush under it, which I guarantee you will out clean the OP and just the bonnet. I can I can put different things under there, and I can put a wider selection of bonnets. When you use an OP machine, you have to use a single layer bonnet, or you have to use a center stitch bonnet like a microfiber, and the microfibers aren't very effective at absorbing soil. They're okay, but they're not as good as a cotton bonnet. Whereas with a rotary, I can put a double thick. I can put any bonnet made under that machine, and they're not as picky, and they're also not as hard on the bonnets. Um, so that's fine. If you like the OP machines, that's good. I hope they work out great for you. But there's other opinions about it.
John, should you use a red pad on dingy carpet?
I wouldn't use red. God forbid any of the color crocked out of that and bled out of it. It would be rare, but possible. There are the red pads are pretty much floor pads. There are fiber pads with different binders in them made for carpet that might be a better fit for you. So you might want to do a little bit of looking and not just grab the first pad that comes down the path that's available to you.
Right. Now, does anyone have we have time for maybe one to two more questions. It's 9:50, well, it's 9:55 where John and I are. Um is there any last question? This has really turned out to be, yeah, someone just put good information. You're not lying. So now this is the free information that you guys are always saying that you wish you could get. And you're speaking to a cleaner, a manufacturer, and a chemist all in one. So this is the time to ask your questions. We have time for one to two more. While we're looking and seeing if you guys want to ask a question, John, is there anything that you would like to add um to anything about cleaning, about the pads? You know what? We didn't talk about your machine. What machine? I know you discontinued one. What do you have on the market at this time now?
Well, I have the Mini Max, which is kind of the from a price point, the Rolls Royce of the floor machines because of the components I use to build it and what goes into manufacturing it. So I'm probably going to be getting out of that shortly, just because I don't. The time demands are I can't do everything, and so I'm probably going to let that go. I'm going to build it for a little while longer. So unless I get somebody to take it over, I'll probably shut it down. What I wanted to tell you, and I don't know if you had mentioned or not, but if anybody's interested in any Bonnet Pro product, you can use CCW for Carpet Cleaners World 15, CCW 15, and get a 15% off pretty much anything except for the sample pack or the machine for the next 48 hours. So if that's helpful to anybody, please feel free to take advantage of that.
Did you guys just hear that? Janae or Lisa, please type that in the comment box. They can get 50% off in the
15,
next 48 hours. Go ahead.
15. Did you say
Yeah,
15?
15.
Okay.
15% off in the next 48 hours if they purchase something from Bonnet Pro using, tell them again, John.
CCW 15. Uh, and that you just put that in the coupon section and that'll give you that discount.
Thank you so much.
Sure
Do
thing.
you prefer fiber pads than Iron Man pad?
I prefer the Bonnet, and the reason I prefer the Bonnet is, like I said earlier, the fiber pad's a great scrubbing tool, but you're going to kind of top down clean where you're going to drive the dirt in a little deeper. So you're going to clean the tips and the face fiber pretty good, but that soil went deeper into the carpet. Whereas the Bonnet, I'm taking it off in layers, so I'm pulling more soil out, reducing the load on the end cap polymer, and I think giving the customer an overall better benefit. So if I'm in a if I'm in an area where, let's say, in front of an elevator, or I have a challenging situation in a hallway going into the bathroom where that area is much more soiled than the rest of the hallway, the fiber pad can be useful to break that up. However, if I'm going to clean that area every couple of weeks or every month, I want to constantly be removing soil and reducing the overall soil load in that carpet, as opposed to just moving it top down like a Cymex would do. So I think it's important to remove soil on every step, just like you would with extraction. We're going to do it here with absorption.
Outstanding. All right, John. We have 1 minute left till it's of the hour. John Klucznik of Bonnet Pro, everyone. I can't tell you how informative and how much knowledge you guys gained tonight. I met John about a week ago face to face, and I learned something. I encourage you to go to bonnetpro.com and see the education. You don't have to purchase anything, but go get the education and the knowledge. And then once you do that, then you can check out his line of many things, from cleaning agents to equipment. But get the knowledge. John is a force to be reckoned with when it comes to knowledge. And go to that page. Is it C16 on your website?
Yeah, if you go to bonnetpro.com, on the top menu bar towards the right, there's the CT6 Education Center, and there's 60 or 70 papers and videos and resources up there that are free, that you can educate yourself with, and expand your knowledge base and your comfort level with pursuing low moisture and encapsulation products.
Thank you so much, John Klucznik. And to the carpet cleaning world, we all thank John. A's stand for applause. Please give John many A's so he can know that you are listening to him and that you appreciated his knowledge, because we'll probably be bringing John back to educate us some more. So we want to thank you, John, from Bonnet Pro,
Sure.
And we wish everyone a good night.
It was my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.